Fairy tales always say that mermaids are beautiful princesses, right? Gentle, kind, and singing sweet songs. But reality? It's not always that beautiful. In the real deep sea, things aren't so simple. Behind those old stories could be horrors you can't even imagine. Now, the story begins. I'm Kai, a professional diver. Over the years, I've seen the beauty and terror of the deep sea. I've always been skeptical about the stories of sea monsters, until that one mission in the depths of the Caribbean. It completely changed my understanding of the ocean. This mission was organized by a mysterious research company, and I was hired to investigate several recent disappearances of divers in the Caribbean. Several divers had gone missing, and strangely, their bodies were never found. Only their diving gear was left floating on the surface of the sea. The research company gave us very little information, but they warned me again and again, if you see anything unusual, get out immediately. This part of the ocean has always been filled with tales of mermaids and sea monsters. The local fishermen stay far away from it, believing there are things beneath the water that can't be explained. I've never believed in these kinds of legends, but as an experienced diver, I always remain cautious. On the first day of the mission, our boat sailed into the mysterious waters. It was eerily quiet. No birds, no waves, and the surface of the water was as smooth as glass. The captain's face was tense, as if he too had his own fears about this place. As he checked our gear, he kept reminding us, "Be careful, this water isn't like the rest." I didn't take his words too seriously. After all, deep sea exploration is always dangerous, and I've always been calm and confident in my skills. The first group of divers descended, and at first, everything seemed normal. But 10 minutes later, our radio communication was suddenly cut off. All I could hear was a sharp static, followed by a low, distant echo, as if some unknown sound was coming from the deep. After the first group's communication was interrupted, the team aboard the boat became concerned about their safety. When there was no response from the divers, the team attempted to re-establish contact and waited for a while, but they got only static. The research team and the captain became anxious, but they couldn't locate the first group visually or through sonar. That's when Kai and John decided to dive as the replacement team to investigate the disappearance and try to bring back any information about what happened to the first group. Maybe it's signal interference, said my teammate John, though he looked uneasy. We followed the plan and prepared to go down next. John and I entered the water, but beneath the calm surface was a deep silence that felt unsettling. As we descended further, the visibility got worse, and the temperature dropped sharply. Strangely, the schools of fish that should have been around had vanished, as if all life had fled this part of the sea. Suddenly, John whispered through the radio, "Something feels off. Like something's watching us." I looked around but saw nothing. The floating particles in the water seemed eerie, like ghosts drifting in the depths. Just then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow pass by quickly. I spun around, but there was nothing. "Did you see that?" John's voice broke the silence in my ear. "I did," I replied, but I still couldn't tell what it was. We continued our descent and were almost at the target depth when my spotlight suddenly caught a vague shape. It wasn't a fish. It was a human-like figure. I held my breath, staring at it. The shadow darted away quickly, but I saw it clearly. It was a mermaid. Her body was covered in scales that glowed faintly in the dark water, and her eyes were pitch black, empty of any life. My heart raced, and my instinct told me to flee. But what shocked me even more was that she wasn't alone. More mermaids began to appear in the darkness around us. They swam gracefully, but there was something dangerous in their cold, lifeless eyes. Just as we prepared to surface, John suddenly screamed. His body was yanked forcefully into the depths by an invisible force. I reached out to grab him, but he was quickly dragged into the darkness. All I could hear through the radio were broken sounds, and when I called his name, there was no answer, only silence. The mermaids didn't chase me. They slowly swam away, almost as if they were toying with us, waiting for the right moment. Panicked, I activated my oxygen booster and quickly ascended, trying to escape the eerie waters. Back on the boat, I was shaken. 3 members' disappearance had thrown the entire crew into chaos. We tried every way to reach him, but all the communication systems had failed. My only clue was the mermaids. I started to wonder, the divers who had gone missing weren't simply lost. They had likely encountered what I had, but unlike me, they never made it back. I reported what I saw to the captain and the researchers, but most of them didn't believe me. Mermaids? They looked skeptical. That's just a myth. Still, the captain decided to pause the mission and wait for more support. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just an accident. There was something ancient in these waters, and the mermaids weren't just mythical creatures. They were protecting something we couldn't understand. A few days later, the mission resumed. Despite the doubts among the team, we had to complete the job. I descended again, this time alone, heading back to the deep sea area to find clues about John and the other missing divers. This time, I was more cautious, always on edge, watching for the mermaids lurking in the darkness. As I went deeper, that eerie melody returned. It had a pull I couldn't resist, as if it was summoning me to the depths. I accidentally stumbled into an underwater ruin. The stone pillars and statues looked ancient, as if from a lost civilization. In the center of the ruins was a large stone tablet that caught my attention. The mermaids appeared again. This time, they didn't just watch from afar, they came closer. I realized they weren't just predators, they were guardians of the sea. And we, the intruders, had violated their forbidden territory. As they approached, the pressure around me increased. My oxygen supply dropped rapidly, and my body grew heavier, as if the water was pressing down on me from all sides. I tried to ascend, but the mermaids were faster than I expected. They quickly surrounded me, staring with cold, unforgiving eyes, as if judging my fate. I struggled, trying to escape their grasp, but it was no use. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, my blurry vision caught sight of the massive stone tablet. It glowed faintly, as if it was channeling some ancient power. I suddenly understood. The mermaids weren't just hunting, they were performing a ritual. My breathing became labored, and my oxygen was nearly gone. As the world around me faded into darkness, I was dragged deeper into the abyss. Days later, the rescue team found my diving equipment floating on the surface, but I was nowhere to be found. The research company stayed silent about the incident and didn't release any details to the public. But the rumors of something lurking deep in the Caribbean waters continued to spread among the local fishermen.